Good morning, good evening, whatever time zone you're a part of, everyone, as I'm recording this video. So, a few years ago, I came across this social media reel on behalf of, I believe it was Instagram, and this particular guy, who happened to be a brother, happened to meet up with a female where, to be honest, he didn't even much get the chance to meet up with the female who he wanted to go out on a date with. Instead, he showed up to the site where she arranged to go out on a date with him too. And I'm assuming they beforehand were exchanging DMs as a result of meeting on a dating app, because this is how most people nowadays in this here modern society like to meet, instead of approaching each other the traditional way as far as approaching people in person. Anyways, and I digress. This guy started crying and was going into full detail about how his so-called date, who he was supposed to meet up with, and whichever site they arranged to meet up at, completely ghosted him. This brother also happened to fit the description of a Poindexter. And for some of you who may know about the old school movie, 80s movie, Revenge of the Nerds, it was this one particular character in the movie by the name of Poindexter who happened to be super geeky. And he also happened to fit the description of a Steve Urkel. If a lot of you grew up in the 80s, 90s, were small kids in the 80s to the early to mid part of the 90s, you know exactly about Steve Urkel. Anyway, this guy happened to fit that caliber, someone of that caliber. And my point of saying this is, most of the time when a lot of you brothers who are some of the most nicest, kindest, down-to-earth brothers who have your head on, may have a good head on your shoulder, so to speak, you may do all you can to be nice to practically everybody you may encounter. And one reason why, when it comes to approaching women, that you have such a hard time with women, and this is on behalf of my socially awkward brothers as well. To be honest, this video is specifically on behalf of my guys that will be considered lames, all my black brothers who will be considered lames according to society standards. And what I mean by society standards, who don't fit the description or caliber of a Ray Ray or Pookie. Because Ray Ray and Pookie, as we consider them in our community, the African American community, are some of the most popular guys in the whole entire African American community, from the neighborhood plugs. And for some of you who may not be familiar with the neighborhood plug, that's the neighborhood weed man, aka drug dealer. You also call him a dope dealer if you want to be technical. If not, usually the neighborhood weed man is usually the neighborhood baby daddy who may have upwards of 20 different children by 10 different women, in some cases more. Also, usually that brother who's always driving the old school whip from either the 70s, 80s, or 80s, old school big body with custom wheels as big as, in some cases, 28 inches, may have gold crowns in his mouth or veneers in his mouth, a mouth full of them, and a bunch of tattoos. These are the types of women, black women, that most of, well, these are, let me say it in another way, and excuse me for saying it like I just said it, because I do stumble across my words from time to time. What I was trying to say is, these are the types of brothers that so many black women, especially black women in their teens, 20s, 30s, and even 40s, usually go for, usually choose to reproduce with, have kids with. This is one of the main reasons to all my decent, upstanding, and dignified brothers, highly educated brothers, why you have such a hard time in the dating market due to how so many black American women are caught up on swag for the most part, and how they look at those types of guys as exciting, as a thrill, as somebody who they could brag to about to their female relatives, and not their female relatives, their female girlfriends, or girlfriends to put another way. Because even just saying girlfriends, you already should catch my drift of where I'm coming from. Yet it's still in the same breath complain about these same types of dudes, about how abusive they may usually be, what it may be, how on behalf of how verbally abusive they may be, how mentally abusive they may be in some cases, how physically abusive especially they may usually be to them. Yet it's still, most women, most sisters cannot leave these guys alone. Even for these types of women, even for on behalf of these women that are with these types of guys who may have babies by these guys, and then claim to be so done with these guys after realizing how these guys aren't the most faithful, because it's a well-known fact that a lot of these guys who fit the description of a Ray Ray and a Pookie aren't the most faithful either, due to how those are the main types that so many women are drawn to nowadays, and due to the simple fact that we're living in a world where being good, in a sense, is looked at as something to be ridiculed upon, whereas being a bad person is looked at as a reward, as a quote-unquote badge of honor, something you could also get quote-unquote brownie points for doing. Being one of the most dysfunctional and toxic persons in society, though you are usually praised, especially in the African American community, because in our community we're one of the very few ethnicities, one of the very few races who usually praises people that have been in prison. We look at that as a form of being a real N-word. Anyways, for all my guys who wonder, once again, all my socially awkward guys, all my geeky black guys, all my black guys who may have made excellent grades from all the way to beginning during your elementary school years, all the way up until your college years when you graduated college, from my college educated brothers who carry themselves in such an upstanding and dignified manner. One reason why you have such a hard time when you may have such a hard time when black women, if you may approach nothing but your own kinds of women and prefer to date within your race, the means of your very own race, one reason why is because, and one reason for the most part, like the title states, so many good, decent, and upstanding black men are the last resort when it comes to who black women choose from in the dating pool. It's due to the simple fact that so many black women, black American women, are so infatuated by the guys that don't mean them any good. Some of the most toxic and dysfunctional guys they could find. Those are the types they like to brag on, like to go on social media and take pictures of. Guys, in most cases, who won't hold a job, and in some cases can't get a job due to their criminal, due to them, a lot of them having criminal felonies or records. Guys who may drive their cars and drop them off to work while they may be at home the whole time getting high, smoking weed, or as we say down here in the South, loud / gas. Guys who may have their homeboys at his lady's house, and the house could be in his lady's name, would have the nerve to have his homeboys right at the house, inside of her house, while she at work working in some instances 12 hours, and in very few instances upwards to 14 hours a day, and may even have the nerve to have other women in her house in their bedroom that he may have knocked out while she's at work. Guys who won't contribute to hardly anything, won't even much contribute to putting gas in her car, won't contribute to buying groceries, none of that, due to the simple fact of how these guys, when it all comes down to it, are still mama's boys. And look at, in some instances, they may look at the woman that they may use to be one that may take care of them as a motherly figure. When it all comes down to it, once again, to all my brothers who made, all my dignified, positive brothers who always have carried yourself in such a moralistic, I guess you could say, manner, in such an upstanding manner, who are some of the most nicest, down to earth brothers that you could find, who will make some of the best fathers, best husbands. This is why you're usually the average black American woman's last resort, last priority, due to how so many of them are so obsessed with guys who in some cases may be career criminals, don't want a job. They may just make a career out of being a criminal and getting in trouble with the law, always being incarcerated. And look at that as something to be proud of and brag upon. And in some cases, some of these women even like to brag about having guys that are incarcerated. Believe it or not, and foolish as it may sound, the guys that are always high all the time, guys who are if not under the influence of drugs, usually alcohol, in some cases both, guys who are some of the most ghetto, who are always loud and obnoxious no matter where they may be seen, who always demand attention, guys who, once again, are always full of tattoos, they may have a mouthful of gold teeth, and in some cases may have a whole top row of golds, and even not only that, but some may even have a mouthful of a top full row of golds and a bottom full row of golds. Guys who could barely put a sentence together due to how they feel like if they were more articulate and more eloquently spoken, they would be ridiculed. They would be looked at as quote unquote sounding white. Guys who are not, in most cases, some of the most nicest guys, who like to make a habit out of abusing women, talking down upon their women. And guys who have, once again, multiple kids by multiple women, and look at that as being a real man, being a badge of honor. Anyways, I'm going to end this video because I already have said a mouthful. Before I end the video, and like always, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you smash that like button to show me how much you may have appreciated my feedback and like this video. Make sure you share, you comment on it. Last but not least, subscribe to the video. Well, excuse me, subscribe to the channel. Until next time, you guys have a good one and be safe out there.